I keep thinking to myself, to what will we get used to next? In addition to structural injustice, the spread of hate, climate crises manifesting in the form of COVID-19 and wildfires, the impact of 2020 on our lives and spirit is hard to shake. In many ways, I feel like Purim and our world flipping upside down, masks and all, has yet to end. Now we need a variety of masks, one to limit the spread of disease, one to protect from the toxic air quality. And again, I ask, to what will we get used to next? And yet, here we are. This Shabbat morning, we come together virtually from our homes to gather strength in community, reassurance from tradition, and spiritual vitamins, courage to take on a new year together. Rosh Hashanah, as we know, is called the birthday of the world, Yom Harat HaOlam. Our tradition says that the world was created actually on the 25th of Elul, just this past week, and that today, the 1st of Elul, is the 6th day of creation, the day on which humans were created. Today, then, is the birthday of humanity, the day in which our presence on earth, with all our imperfections and room to grow, began. Today marks the cycle of our globe's creation and our personal recreation. Today, we renew our partnership with Spirit in the project of both global and local renewal. Both the Torah portion of today from Genesis 21 and our Haftorah from the book of Samuel speak to the birth of two longed-for births, the birth of Isaac and the birth of Samuel. The Torah portion begins today, Va'adonai pakadet Sarah, our Kol Hanishama Machzor translates this beautifully as the fount of life took note of Sarah. In addition to Rosh Hashanah being called Yom Harat HaOlam, Yom Din, there are other two actually critical names of Rosh Hashanah I'd like to focus on, two names that are giving me hope and courage this season. And both of them happen to be tied to themes of birth and creativity in the time of COVID. These two names, Yom HaZikaron and Yom Tru'ah. Yom HaZikaron literally means the day of remembrance. On Rosh Hashanah, tradition prods us to remember. In the opening line of our Torah portion, Adonai pakadet Sarah, God visits, takes note, remembers Sarah. And we too are invited to take note and be noticed, to take the driver's seat and live with urgency. Today, God is not only visiting and noticing Sarah, God is taking note of each of us here today. On this Yom HaZikaron, the day of remembrance, we are invited to tune back into our essence, who we are on this sixth day of creation when everything is possible in the world. The canvas is fresh and beckoning. And while this is true, so is the lived experience of Sarah and Avraham, and they're relatable models of human doubt, skepticism. After all, they had been wanting to be parents for years and years. And so when the baby comes, Vatomer Sarah tzok asali Elohim. She says, God caused me to laugh. Sarah laughs at God's special delivery. And Avraham confers this irony by naming the child Yitzchak, literally laughter. As our ancestors' models, bring your doubt and your skepticism to the table. Our matriarchs and patriarchs most certainly did. And amidst the laughter and perhaps the tears, what or who is it that you have been longing for? What essential part of yourself have you given up on due to impossible factors? For Sarah and Abraham, it was age. He was 100, she was 90. For you, it could be age or youth, no time, resources, a bruised past, years of disappointment, a sense of, why bother? Today we are reminded that the impossible is possible. The deferred dream is still ours for the creating, and cracks are how the light gets in. So what is it that you want to remember this Rosh Hashanah? What is it that's inside of you yet to be born? And what would take your breath away? For me, something that's especially present for me this year is, God willing, the birth of an upcoming baby, this baby Solomon. I've always wanted to be a mom, and over the years I thought I would meet a partner and create a family in a typical way, a typical order. And so far I have yet to meet this partner. I still welcome him to show up, of course, especially now, and yet I looked at my skepticism and my fear and my doubt and my sense of inadequacy straight in the eyes and took one tiny step at a time towards what felt like mission impossible. And to be honest, there are many moments and days when it still feels impossible to imagine, and yet I keep taking one tiny step at a time. I'm so grateful to Rabbi Ruchi, Sophia, and Nina, the staff, Jeff, and our board, and all of you who have welcomed me here with open arms and open heart, expressing your excitement and hope. I share this not as proof that I or we can overcome doubt and fears, but rather that we can live with our doubts and our fears and still act upon our dreams and create lives that we love. This name, Yom HaZikaron, challenges us to reconnect to the larger story of what's possible for our lives. What is the life that yearns to be lived through you? This might not necessarily be easy or comfortable, but it is the path, I believe, that creates life. The path that, looking back, we will be proudest to remember and to be remembered by. And we're never done. Even today, I ask myself, what's next? What will I create today, tomorrow, and this year? There's another name for Rosh Hashanah, which to me provides an actual methodology, the steps of how to create and begin anew. Yom Tru'ah, the day of the blast. Between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, tradition invites us that the shofar will be blown 100 times. Rav Sadia Gaon has 10 reasons that we blast the shofar. Some of the classics. The blast reminds us, of course, of the creation of the world, God's coronation as sovereign, the call for tshuva, repentance and changing our ways. It reminds us of the binding of Yitzchak, that miracle babe that we read about in today's Torah portion, and the call for the future gathering of our people. The shofar is basically the primal call home. Yom Tru'ah I hear as a visceral reminder. The sound of the shofar itself. My teacher and beloved founder of my rabbinical school in Boston, Rabbi Arthur Green, writes about shofar in his book, Seek My Face and Speak My Name. Rabbi Green says, the dream of restored wholeness on any level, personal, family, as a nation, this dream is sounded out dramatically in the shofar blasts, the central symbolic expression of the tshuva season. The shofar, he says, represents prayer beyond words. And there just happens to be a shofar here, so I'm going to bring it to our presence. The shofar, he said, represents prayer beyond words, an intensity of longing that can only be articulated in a wordless shout. But the order of the sounds, according to one interpretation, contains the message in quite explicit terms. Each series of shofar blasts begins with tekiah, a whole sound, and it is followed by shivarim, a tripartite broken sound whose very name means breakings. Tekiah, I started off whole, the shofar says. Shivarim, I became broken, she continues. Then follows teruah, a staccato series of blast fragments saying, I was entirely smashed to pieces. But each series, Rabbi Green points out, has to end with a new tekiah, promising wholeness once more. This understanding, this hearing, this listening for of the shofar feels profound to me. It acknowledges that somewhere deep within us is a knowing and remembering that even us, and I hear my grandparents telling the joke about, look who thinks he's nothing. Each of us, all of us, have within us a promise and experience of tekiah, I started off whole. And then over time, perhaps decades, especially this year, shivarim, I became broken and was smashed to pieces. And then, hopefully with the support of community, our tradition, and the divine, we are willing to get quiet inside and hear, tekiah, you started off whole. This morning is the 6th day since the world was created. Hayom Harat Ha'olam, the day the world was conceived, made pregnant. And this world is not only the greater world, the globe that we are privileged to live upon, known in our tradition as the olam, but it's also about the recreation of each of us, known as an olam katan, a small yet complete, perfect world created in God's image. This Shabbat and Rosh Hashanah morning, I want to bless us that we may be like Sarah and Avraham, visited by grace, surprised by our prayers being answered, inspired by life, renewed, and filled with the joy of what is possible. May our upcoming 10-day soul retreat bring us closer to our essence, to each other, and to Spirit, cheering us on with the sweetest, healthiest tekiah gedolah we have ever heard. Shana Tova.